The honey on your shelf probably contains no honey. Not diluted honey, not cheaper honey, no honey. In 2011, a professor at Texas A&M University tested more than 60 products labeled honey from retailers across 10 states. 76% of grocery store samples contained zero pollen. The only biological marker that proves a substance came from bees. 100% of drugstore brands, 100% of fast food packets, every single one. The FDA's own position is that ultra-filtered honey is not honey. The FDA does not test retail honey for pollen. Those two facts have coexisted since 2011. They coexist today. The global market for what Americans call honey is valued at $9.5 billion in 2024. A product with no legal definition, no mandatory purity testing, and no enforceable standard generates nearly $10 billion annually. That structure did not emerge from neglect. In October 2011, the FDA formally denied a 5-year-old petition to establish a federal standard of identity for honey. The same protection that maple syrup has held for decades, the protection that makes it illegal to print the words maple syrup on a label containing anything else. The petition sat on the FDA's desk for 5 years. The denial took one sentence. The honey market has more than doubled since. There is a second-generation beekeeper in the United States right now whose family has worked hives for 5 decades. His product has pollen, enzymes, and every compound the grocery store version was processed to remove. He cannot sell it. The price the market pays for what it calls honey is lower than what it costs him to produce the real thing. By the end of this, you will know his name, the legal path that bypasses every layer of this system, and exactly how to find someone like him near where you live. But first, you need to understand what was actually inside that jar before someone decided you did not need to know. Real honey is not a sweetener. It is the output of a biological manufacturing process that no industrial facility on Earth has replicated. A bee colony processes flower nectar through enzymatic conversion, reducing water content from roughly 80% down to 17%, adding glucose oxidase, catalase, organic acids, and a compound profile that exceeds 200 confirmed bioactive substances. The result has a pH low enough to suppress bacterial growth indefinitely. Properly stored honey does not expire. Archaeologists excavated ceramic vessels from a Georgian tomb in 2003 during pipeline construction. The honey inside, 3 types, linden, berry, and meadowflower, was between 4,700 and 5,500 years old. They described it as edible. Total phenolic content in tested genuine honey samples ranges from 24 milligrams to over 122 milligrams of gallic acid equivalents per 100 grams of honey, depending on floral source. Every tested honey variety outperformed every tested syrup substitute in antioxidant capacity by a statistically significant margin. The compound count in corn syrup is not lower. It is 0. Rice syrup, beet syrup, the 2 adulterants currently dominating international honey fraud, are calories and sweetness. The rest is absent. The antimicrobial data is specific. Laboratory testing of buckwheat and manuka varieties shows measurable inhibition zones against methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. The mechanism involves hydrogen peroxide production, low water activity, acid environment, and phytochemical compounds operating in combination. No single mechanism explains the full effect. That combination is precisely what makes the product unreplicable by an industrial process. A 2014 study published in Scientific Reports examined gene expression in bee fat body tissue across 3 diets: genuine honey, sucrose, and corn syrup. Bees-fed honey showed a transcriptional profile entirely distinct from bees-fed either substitute. The genes upregulated were those associated with oxidation reduction processes and aromatic amino acid metabolism. The researchers concluded that sucrose and corn syrup may not be equivalent nutritional substitutes to honey at the biological level. The one published human study claiming metabolic equivalence between honey and corn syrup, conducted at a USDA facility and partially supported by industry funding, used a commercial blend honey formed from multiple geographic sources, ultra-filtered, enzymatically degraded. The researchers noted this explicitly. It was not a test of honey. It was a test of what most Americans currently buy when they purchase a product labeled honey. The distinction was not emphasized in coverage of the study. December 2001. The United States Department of Commerce imposed anti-dumping duties on Chinese honey entering the U.S. market at below fair market value. Certain classifications faced duties exceeding 200% of product value. Chinese honey imports dropped. They did not stop. Honey exited China and entered India. It entered Vietnam. It received new certificates of origin. It arrived at U.S. Customs as Indian honey, Vietnamese honey, Australian honey. The tariffs did not apply. The price was the same. The Department of Homeland Security opened a formal investigation in 2008. In 2006, the American Beekeeping Federation and 4 allied industry groups filed a petition with the FDA. They asked for a federal standard of identity for honey, the same protection that maple syrup had held for decades, the protection that makes it illegal to print the words maple syrup on a label that does not contain pure maple syrup. The petition cited the Codex Alimentarius Commission's international standard. They submitted it under docket number FDA 2006 P0207. They waited. In 2008, the DHS investigation into honey transshipment reached its operational phase. An undercover agent assumed the role of Director of Procurement at a cooperating distributor. By 2013, the Department of Justice had charged 14 individuals and 2 corporations. Groeb Farms, the self-described world's largest honey packer, Honey Solutions of Texas. The total anti-dumping duties evaded across documented cases exceeded $180 million. The Department of Homeland Security found that some of the honey carried chloramphenicol, a broad-spectrum antibiotic banned from food-producing animals in the United States because medical researchers documented its susceptibility to cause DNA damage in children. The FDA had banned its presence in food. Chinese beekeepers used it anyway. The honey moved through a second country, received new labels, and arrived in U.S. distribution warehouses. Groeb Farms paid $2 million in penalties. Honey Solutions paid $1 million. Both admitted to the conduct. Groeb Farms subsequently declared bankruptcy. On October 5, 2011, while federal investigators were still building the Honeygate case, the FDA formally denied the petition to create a standard of identity for honey. The agency's stated conclusion: existing enforcement tools were sufficient. No standard was necessary. The maple syrup standard still exists. The honey standard does not. The U.S. Pharmacopeal Convention's food fraud database, published the following year, listed honey as one of the 7 most adulterated food ingredients in the United States market. Who decided that existing tools were sufficient? The FDA published its reasoning. The reasoning is available in the Federal Register. Read it and ask yourself what problem it was designed to solve. In March 2023, the European Commission published the results of a coordinated testing operation called From the Hives. The Joint Research Center analyzed 320 honey shipments at EU borders using nuclear magnetic resonance, the most sensitive available detection method. Of those 320 shipments, 147 were suspected of adulteration with syrups derived from rice, wheat, or sugar beet. Turkey's suspicion rate in the same dataset, 93%. China's, 74%. All 10 shipments entering through the United Kingdom fail. 100%. The price differential explains the structure. Rice syrups used as adulterants cost between 40 and 60 euro cents per kilogram at wholesale. The average import price of honey at EU borders that year was 2 euros and 32 cents per kilogram. That margin, applied across hundreds of millions of pounds annually, sustained the infrastructure that U.S. prosecutors described as the largest food and customs fraud in American history. Back in the United States, the FDA tested 144 imported honey shipments in its 2021-2022 assignment. 10% came back as economically motivated adulteration using the agency's current methods. Those methods detect a subset of adulterant types. New generation sugar syrups, engineered specifically to pass standard carbon isotope testing, require nuclear magnetic resonance to identify. The FDA does not routinely use nuclear magnetic resonance on import honey. The Indian export numbers produce a structural impossibility. India became the largest single source of U.S. honey imports in 2021, accounting for 39% of all imports. Approximately 45 million pounds shipped to the United States alone that year. Richard Adee, one of the country's largest commercial beekeepers and a former president of the American Honey Producers Association, stated publicly that India does not have enough bees to produce that volume. The pollen that would identify where that honey came from has been removed. 76% of grocery store samples. 100% of drugstore samples. The FDA says ultra-filtered honey is not honey. The FDA does not test retail honey for pollen. Those two facts exist simultaneously. They have existed simultaneously since 2011. The consumer has no way to know. That is not an accident. Imagine a Saturday morning in late summer, early enough that the market has not filled yet. The table is in the corner of the lot, set back from the larger commercial stalls. The jars are different colors, some amber, some nearly black, one almost white. No two are the same because no two floral sources are the same. The beekeeper knows which county each jar came from. He knows the crop. He knows the harvest month. He tells you without being asked, because the information is the product. You pick up the dark one, buckwheat. It is heavier than you expected. The color is the color of strong tea. You hold it up, and the light comes through it unevenly, which is the pollen and the wax microparticles that were not filtered out, because there was no reason to filter them out. You buy it. You take it home. You put a spoonful in warm water and watch it settle to the bottom in a slow, coherent mass before it begins to dissolve. Genuine honey with an intact glucose to fructose ratio behaves this way. Ultra-filtered honey with an altered sugar profile dissolves quickly and evenly like table sugar, because structurally that is closer to what it is. The taste is not what you expected, not more intense. Different in kind. There is something behind the sweetness that is not sweetness, something that arrived from a specific field in a specific season through a process 4,000 years old and completely unpatentable because you cannot patent what a bee does. You put the jar down. You feel something specific, not nostalgia, recognition. Chris Hyatt is a commercial beekeeper in the United States. His family has worked hives for 5 decades. His operation is not small. His honey has pollen. It has enzymes. It has the full compound profile that 200 peer-reviewed studies describe as distinct from any industrial substitute. As of the most recent court filings, Adee Honey Farms, one of the country's largest commercial beekeeping operations, was storing over 6 million pounds of verified domestic honey it could not sell. Kroger would not buy it. Walmart would not buy it. Trader Joe's would not buy it. The price those retailers pay for what they call honey is lower than the cost of producing the genuine article. The legal path that bypasses this structure is direct-to-consumer sale. In every U.S. state, a registered beekeeper can sell directly to a customer at a farmer's market or at the farm without additional regulatory approval. No FDA standard of identity required. No import chain. No ultrafiltration requirement. The North Carolina Beekeepers Association maintains a certified honey producer database with verified apiaries. Your state has an equivalent. The American Honey Producers Association maintains national producer resources. The economics are the test. Domestic honey producers report a cost structure of $2 to $3 per pound for genuine production. 12 ounces is 3/4 of a pound. If the jar on the shelf costs $4, the arithmetic of genuine honey production cannot support that price. This is not an opinion. It is the reported cost structure of U.S. commercial beekeeping versus the retail price point of most commodity honey. Test at home before you commit to anything. A tablespoon in a glass of water. Genuine honey with intact sugar ratios settles to the bottom in a visible mass before slowly dispersing. Ultra-filtered honey dissolves quickly and evenly. It is a first indicator, not a laboratory result. If your honey dissolves like table sugar, that question has an answer. World Beekeeping Awards in Copenhagen canceled their honey competition. Not because of scheduling conflicts, not because of funding. The organizers stated they could not guarantee that submitted samples would be genuine honey rather than corn syrup with honey flavoring. The competition that exists to celebrate the product was canceled because the product has become too rare to compete with its own counterfeits. That sentence was written in 2025 about honey. A substance human beings have produced continuously for at least 8,000 years, painted on cave walls in Spain, sealed in ceramic vessels for the dead, carried across every continent before money existed. A $10 billion market with no legal definition is not a regulatory failure. It is a regulatory product. The definition was requested. The request was denied. The denial was published. The market doubled. 10 years from now, your neighbors will still be buying amber liquid in bear-shaped plastic bottles, paying full price for a product that passed through 3 countries before it was labeled, with no pollen and no origin and no accountability. You will know a beekeeper's name. You will know the county. You will walk out on a Saturday morning and come home with something that has not changed since the Stone Age. And you will taste the distance between a decision made in Washington in 2011 and the thing that decision was designed to replace. If this opens something for you, if you can see yourself standing at that table asking the questions that now have answers, subscribe so you do not miss the next system we uncover. Share this with someone who is still buying the bear bottle and does not know there was ever another way.